Um, Nerdzone says also I can explain why Amazon technically doesn't own Bond. MGM publishes 007, but they don't make the films. So yeah, it's Sony. It used to be United Artists, I believe, was the original. So it was Cubby Broccoli who bought the rights, the film rights, directly from Ian Fleming himself. Ian Fleming didn't want to sell because he had sold off the television rights for Casino Royale in 1950. Ooh, 1958, I believe, or maybe it was 56. It was in the 50s. And you can actually go and watch the original Casino Royale with Peter Lorre. It's streaming on YouTube. It's all in black and white. It was a made-for-TV movie in the 50s for CBS. It did not go very well. It was bad. They changed James Bond. They changed his name from James Bond to Jimmy Bond, and he was played by an American. It was bad. But Cubby Broccoli he was like a rising film producer in England. He's American, but he moved to England because he was such an Anglophile. So he moved to England and started making English films, read the 007 novels, fell in love with them, and said, this is what my next project needs to be. So then he hounded Ian Fleming and gave him all the assurances in the world. Your creation will not be a joke. It's going to be legit. I am not going to cut any corners on this. So he, teamed Cubby Broccoli once he got the rights and convinced Ian Fleming to sell him the rights. That's when he started doing pictures with United Artists. Now, the Casino Royale rights issue was held on by CBS. I believe the agreement was until 2003 or 2004. Maybe it was 2004. That's when the rights came due. So that's why Pierce Brosnan was fired. Not fired. He was let go as James Bond because they wanted to do Casino Royale. And if you're going to do Casino Royale, it's kind of an origin story, so you can't do an origin story with James Bond with the same actor who's been playing James Bond. So anyway, that was the whole thing. They got rid of Pierce Brosnan. They brought in Daniel Craig in 2006 to do that Bond film. But moving backwards, United Artists went bankrupt in the 80s. So if you look at all of the James Bond films from 1962's Dr. No until 1989's License to Kill with Timothy Dalton, they were all produced by United Artists. United Artists went belly up in 1989 or 1990, something like that. So with the combination of the Berlin Wall falling in 1989 and the rights not the rights, but the distribution to James Bond being up in the air momentarily, that's why there was a 7-year gap. 6-year gap. 1995 is when GoldenEye came out. So there was a huge gap because up until that point, James Bond movies have been coming out every other year, and then we have a 6-year gap. Enter Pierce Brosnan, blah blah blah, whatever. Distribution rights at that time were picked up by MGM. But then when so the 90s James Bond movies were MGM distributed, right? They were MGM distributed. That's why, like, again, the opening title sequence, which we traditionally always seen, United Artists, is now the roaring lion for MGM. Then fast forward to 2006, and that whole the rights issue with Casino Royale came out, right? So MGM teamed up with Sony, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe there was a statute of limitations on that distribution right. So the film rights, sorry, I have so many things going through my brain right now. So the film distribution rights had a statute of limitations for MGM and then went to Sony afterwards as a result of the acquisition of Casino Royale, because Sony and CBS, are Sony and CBS the same company? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that. There's some correlation there. Anyway, so now with Daniel Craig, Casino Royale films moving forward, surprisingly, the film rights for James Bond have always remained in the Cubby Broccoli family, whether by his actual daughter, Barbara Broccoli, or by his stepson, Michael Wilson. They have always remained in the family, and hopefully, fingers crossed, will always remain in the family. They've been making great films. I mean, Spectre aside, of course, there's a few stinkers. You're always gonna have a few stinkers, and there's a few stinkers in the MCU. It's a franchise. You're gonna have stinkers. You're gonna have great movies, and you're gonna have stinkers. Anyway, so, but yeah, there was a whole thing with Amazon acquiring the rights to Bond. Hold on, now I gotta look this up. Amazon 007. What does Amazon buying MGM mean for James Bond? This is in Forbes. Man, all the other stuff, that's just been I just know all this stuff because I love Bond so much. Yeah, Amazon will be purchasing MGM for $8.4 billion. That's the end of an era. Yeah, so moving forward, the Bond films will be produced by Amazon. It takes a potential major player off the acquisition board while showing that Amazon Prime is committed to being more than just an added value element for folks signing up for free shipping, blah, blah, blah. As far as what it means for MGM's Golden Goose, Eon Productions, Barbara Broccoli and Michael Wilson stated that, quote, "We are committed to continuing to make James Bond films for the worldwide theatrical audience." So, going off of Amazon's track record, Amazon has deep pockets right now. So, that potentially could mean a higher budget for a future Bond flick, whether they get Cary Fukunaga to come back and direct. I am so glad that this chapter, this Daniel Craig chapter, is going to be over. Daniel Craig has been my favorite James Bond out of any of the other Bonds. Spectre, I hated so much. And this has been the only, so I'm going off on a long rant here. The Daniel Craig films have had one, it's been a thin through storyline, but it has been one consistent story from start to finish. And I understand, it's the first time a James Bond film has done that it's actually connected the story in a logical way. Yeah, Blofeld's popped up in movies from time to time, and it was fine, it was what it was. But the character, or the actor of Blofeld, kept changing. The circumstances surrounding Blofeld kept changing. He was just kind of like this nebulous character, right? Who was the villain. He was the bad guy against James Bond, and there wasn't any connecting story to connect these movies together until Daniel Craig. And there's a loose story connection there. Mr. White plays a big part in all of the films. Keeps popping up. Obviously, Blofeld was behind it the whole time, right? Oh, that revelation was so contrived, and I hated it so much. But anyway. I also can explain why Amazon technically doesn't own Bond. MGM publishes 007, but they don't make the films. Yeah, so, and then there's that. Anyway, I talked way too long about that. But yeah, I love me some 007. Bing! Daniel Craig, James Bond. There it is. If they made a pop toy of George Lazenby, James Bond, I would buy it. And or Timothy Dalton. I don't think there's a Timothy Dalton James Bond pop toy or George Lazenby. If there are, please send me a link because I would very much like to purchase those. All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, click like. If you really like this video, click subscribe. And if you really, really like this video, click share. Because that is exactly what Luke Skywalker would want you to do. Da 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 dun dun da 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 dun dun.